Now to Los Angeles, to the body found in the trunk of a Tesla belonging to a well-known singer. The body identified as a teenage girl missing for more than a year. Well, tonight, investigators are now at the home where that singer had been staying, removing several items.
There. It's a little weird to see a car that I haven't seen here for a long time. Had a big dent on it, had a Texas plate on it. So all of...
On September 8, 2025, the world woke up to a nightmare straight out of a Hollywood thriller. Headlines confirmed what many feared. The decomposed remains of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez were found stuffed in the front trunk of a Tesla, registered to none other than rising music star David Anthony Burke, known to fans simply as David. The abandoned vehicle, reeking and forgotten, had been towed from the exclusive Bird Streets, a neighborhood with a rich and infamous hide behind gates and cameras. But here's the twist that sent shockwaves across the internet. When the FBI raided David's Hollywood Hills mansion, they found nothing. No blood. No weapons. No forensic link tying him to the crime. Agents walked away with only his electronics, phones, hard drives, computers, and insiders claim none contained messages or contacts with Celeste after she vanished in April 2024. Oh, the chilling question remains. If David didn't kill her, who did? And why was Celeste's body left in his car, like a grotesque calling card?
In front of this poster right here. She's been missing since I taught her. So when I taught her, she met this dude on social media. He was a rapper in LA. He came and got her. She ran away from home. She was gone for like a month. The cops found her in Hollywood, brought her back to our school. She came back to our school, kind of told people this story. She disappeared again in May of that year. And then I found out yesterday that she's now in that rapper's.
Let's rewind to that chilling morning, the moment tow yard workers first caught the stench. The Tesla had been sitting there for days, its Texas plates and a distinctive dent making it stand out in a city obsessed with flawless luxury. When authorities finally pried open the trunk, what they uncovered wasn't just a body. It was a riddle. The remains belonged to 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, missing for over a year. Her family had spent months pleading for answers, her face plastered across Lake L on posters that slowly faded with time. But the timeline is what makes this case so sinister. The car appeared abandoned in early September 2025, yet Celeste vanished in April 2024. That's nearly a year and a half of silence. A year and a half of unanswered prayers. A year and a half where the Tesla lingered somewhere in Hollywood, unseen, until someone decided the world needed to discover its secret. Was this a setup? A calculated move to frame David Anthony Burke, the young star whose lyrics about romantic homicide suddenly hit too close to home? Or does something even darker hide beneath the surface? The fallout was instant and merciless. David's tour dates vanished from the internet overnight. His label, Intercope, froze the deluxe release of Withered, the album that had skyrocketed off his Gen Z anthem Romantic Homicide. Fans who once screamed his lyrics at sold-out shows were now combing through them for clues, their adoration curdling into suspicion. His social media went dark. His once vibrant subreddit locked down after accusations that David himself had been quietly deleting posts asking the questions no one wanted answered. And then, there were the tattoos. Celeste had etched a small design onto her right index finger. Months later, in September 2024, David appeared in photos sporting the very same mark. Coincidence? Or a chilling signature left by someone desperate for the world to connect the dots?
Always quiet, nice. She come in like if she buy like a chips, soda, and leave.
Here's where the story twists. Just days after the FBI raid, David's manager, Josh Marshall, made a move that set off alarms. He abruptly broke the $20,000 a month lease on the Hollywood Hills mansion David had been living in, packing up belongings with a speed that looked less like business and more like panic. The homeowner, Mladen Trifunovic, later told reporters he hadn't even known David was staying there until police swarmed the property. Which raises the question, why the sudden exit? Why sever ties with such a high-profile home unless you're trying to put distance between yourself and something, or someone? And then there's the Tesla. Neighbors claimed it had been parked on the street for weeks before it was finally towed. In Los Angeles, where parking enforcement will ticket you for a cracked taillight in minutes, how does a car carrying a decomposing body sit untouched? Unless, of course, it was meant to be discovered. At the perfect moment.
Looking for blood evidence in the house and the garage. Neighbors remember seeing the Tesla regularly parked at that house, and it was abandoned and towed to an impound lot.
The FBI's silence since the raid has been deafening. Yes, They seized David's electronics. But what did they actually uncover? According to insiders, the digital trail is disturbingly clean. No calls. No texts. No trace of contact between David and Celeste after she vanished. And yet, the questions won't stop stacking up. Celeste's mother told TMZ her daughter had mentioned dating someone named David before she disappeared. Add to that the matching tattoos, the cancelled tour, the sudden lease termination. It's a web of circumstantial evidence, as tantalizing as it is terrifying. Then there's the online fallout, the locked subreddit, the deleted posts, the sense that David's team is scrambling to wrestle back control of the narrative. Oh, what are we really looking at? The desperate flailing of an innocent man caught in a storm, or the calculated cover-up of a truth too dark to face?
She got in contact with David, like she never saw him.
She didn't know who the David was.
She had heard of him. And it seemed like the last time that she had seen her daughter was when she had gone out.
Let's talk about the Tesla. It wasn't simply abandoned, it was staged. Parked in the Hollywood Hills, a neighborhood blanketed with security cameras and watchful neighbors, it should have raised alarms immediately. But somehow, no one noticed. Not until the stench made it impossible to ignore. Not until the timing was perfect. And when the trunk was finally opened, what they found wasn't just Celeste's body, it was a message. Her remains, wrapped and decomposed, were presented in a way designed for maximum shock value. This wasn't only a tragedy. It was a spectacle. Oh, the question is, who benefits from a spectacle like this? Who gains from watching David's career implode in scandal and suspicion? Because, make no mistake, someone wanted this story to erupt exactly the way it did. Then there's the music. David's entire persona has always flirted with the macabre. His concerts staged with caskets, bloodied handprints, and lyrics drenched in themes of love, death, and something darker. Fans once brushed it off as art. Now, it feels like a blueprint. His breakout hit Romantic Homicide no longer plays like a song, it's a haunting echo. A puzzle piece no one can ignore. And the timing? The deluxe release of his album was scheduled just days after Celeste's body surfaced. Coincidence? Or was someone counting on the kind of publicity that feeds off darkness?
I've gone down these rabbit holes. You know, you look at these lyrics, okay, of Romantic Homicide. I have them right here. He has a line where he says, "In the back of my mind, I killed you and I didn't even regret it." One of his music videos, I think, you know, he's carrying a casket, or people are carrying a casket. He just seems to have this very sick fascination.
The LAPD has been careful with its language, calling this a passing investigation instead of a homicide. But let's be honest, when the dismembered remains of a 15-year-old are pulled from the trunk of a car, the word homicide hangs heavy in the air like a storm cloud. Legal experts say they're waiting for autopsy results, for toxicology, for something concrete before they move. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict is already being written. And David's team knows it. That's why the promotions vanished. That's why the tour dates disappeared. That's why his manager bolted. In Hollywood, perception isn't just everything, it's survival. And right now, David is either the unluckiest man in music, or the mastermind behind something unspeakable. But here's the detail that gnaws at everyone. If David didn't do this, then who did? Who had the access, the motive, the cold precision to turn a missing girl into a viral scandal? Because this wasn't just a crime. It was staged. The car, the timing, the tattoos, the leaked photos, it all feels too neat, too designed. And in a city built on smoke and mirrors, the most chilling possibility isn't that David is guilty. It's that he's the pawn in someone else's twisted production. So where does that leave us? With a pop star's career in free fall. With a grieving family who will never see their daughter again. With a trail of breadcrumbs that doesn't lead to a killer, but to a web of questions that only grow darker. The FBI's raid turned up nothing. But the real investigation is only just beginning. Because if David didn't kill Celeste Rivas, then whoever did is still out there, watching, waiting. And if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's this: the second act is always darker than the first.
Before he was even charged, there were people who backed off and, didn't want to be associated, didn't want to answer any questions about him. That's what happens in showbiz when you suddenly are the focus of things like this. All those people who are your friends.
The moment Celeste Rivas's body was found, David's world didn't just collapse, it was dismantled piece by piece. His label, Introscope, didn't simply pause promotions, they erased him. Tour dates vanished from ticketing sites overnight. The deluxe release of his album was shelved indefinitely. Brands like Crocs and Hollister scrubbed his name from campaigns as if he'd never existed. But here's the question no one is asking. Was this just corporate panic, or was David's downfall engineered from the inside? Industry whispers suggest his meteoric rise, fueled by romantic homicide and a Gen Z fanbase obsessed with his dark aesthetic, made him a target. Rival artists, jealous executives, even burned former collaborators all had motive to see him fall. And what better way to ruin a man than to tie his name to a national tragedy? The timing is too precise. The Tesla. The tattoos. The cancelled shows. It reads less like coincidence and more like a playbook for career assassination. So, who stood to gain the most from David's implosion? Because in the music industry, loyalty doesn't last. The next hit single always comes with a price, and betrayal isn't just expected. It's currency.
We're aware of this house, and not in a good way. We've heard a lot of people say that there were a lot of noise complaints. In fact, this is really strange. Is the latest one was last weekend. Now, clearly, David was not there in the house, but somebody was playing loud music, and there was a complaint about noise.
But let's go deeper, because the music industry isn't the only arena where power plays turn deadly. Los Angeles has an underground web of alliances and vendettas, where street politics bleed straight into the entertainment world. David's Texas roots and the Tesla's Lone Star plates might seem like throwaway details. But in a city where turf wars dictate more than just territory, they could be the key to everything. The car wasn't simply abandoned, it was staged. Parked in the Hollywood Hills, a neighborhood crawling with cameras and watchful neighbors, it should have been flagged immediately. Yet it sat there, ignored, until the exact moment it became useful. Oh, what was it? A message. A warning. Retaliation for a debt David never even knew he owed? In Los Angeles, the line between a business deal gone bad and a life-or-death situation is razor thin. And if Celeste's tragic fate was collateral damage in a feud David never saw coming, then the real question isn't just who framed him. It's, who's still out there, pulling the strings?
Ages, this guy's 20, she was about to be 15, right? I mean, this is really wild how they hooked up in the first place, allegedly, and where it went from there.
And that brings us to the man who's been disturbingly quiet through all of this, Josh Marshall. David's manager didn't just break the $20,000 a month Hollywood Hills lease, he fled. Packed the house, cut ties, and vanished from the story like a ghost. But Marshall wasn't just a background figure. For 4 years, he controlled David's schedule, his finances, even his environment. If Celeste was groomed, if the Tesla was planted, if evidence disappeared, Marshall was in the perfect position to make it happen. Then there's the surveillance, or the lack of it. The Tesla was dumped in one of the most heavily monitored neighborhoods in Los Angeles, yet somehow no one saw a thing. That's not luck. That's choreography. Whoever left that car knew the blind spots, knew exactly how long before the stench became undeniable, and knew the media would descend like vultures the second the body was found. This wasn't amateur work, it was a professional hit, staged with precision. Oh, where does that leave David? A rising star whose brand thrived on dark imagery, now trapped in a nightmare even he couldn't have scripted. His label's silence speaks volumes. His manager's disappearance is a billboard-sized red flag. And the FBI's raid, yielding nothing, that's the final twist in a conspiracy so tight it makes Hollywood thrillers look tame. But here's the thing about setups, they always leave traces. And in this case, those traces point directly at the people with the most to gain from David's destruction. Rival artists who coveted his spotlight, executives who hated his independence, and maybe even Marshall himself, whose sudden exit looks less like panic and more like cover-up. If David was framed, then the person who orchestrated it isn't just ruthless. They're still out there, watching, waiting, ready to strike again.
It's very clear we're going to get to the bottom of this sooner than later. Like they are closing in, and it is heartbreaking to see these images of Celeste now, knowing how she came to her end, but to see her at a very young age in this sort of Hollywood circle, you just wonder how it got to that point for her, and you hope the police can.
Let's talk about timing, because in a case this twisted, nothing feels accidental. Celeste's body was discovered on September 8, 2025, the day after her 15th birthday. Think about that. A life already stolen, her final memory marked by the cruelest irony imaginable. But here's the detail that sends chills down the spine. This wasn't just a date. It was a message, a psychological landmine planted squarely in David's path. His entire artistic identity revolves around themes of loss, remembrance, and the macabre. Withered isn't just an album, it's a funeral dirge, a meditation on grief so immersive that fans entered his shows through a casket, signing
some platforms just because they have seen what's going on, and until we know for certain, I think some artists will see David as kind of.
Let's be clear, this wasn't just a crime. It was a performance. A grotesque, meticulously staged spectacle designed not only to destroy David's career, but to dismantle his mind. The Tesla, the tattoos, the timing. It's all too exact, too intimate. Whoever orchestrated this didn't simply want to ruin him, they wanted to haunt him. They wanted David to wake up every morning knowing the world would forever link him to the very darkness he'd romanticized in his music. Imagine it, the man who wrote Romantic Homicide, who built a brand on the razor's edge of life and loss, now trapped inside a real-life horror story where he's cast as both villain and victim. This wasn't just the taking of a life, it was the weaponization of art itself. David's own creations were twisted into the bars of his psychological prison. And if that's true, this wasn't the work of a random predator. This was the work of someone who knew him, someone who understood the
is investigating this case. They still have not said it's a.
Correct. Meaning that they don't know the cause of death. Obviously, yes, the body was dismembered and was, where the parts were in a bag that was in the Tesla, but they don't know.
And then there's the most unsettling detail of all, the tattoos. Celeste's small, personal ink, mirrored by David months after her disappearance. Coincidence? Or a signature? In Hollywood, where image is everything, symbols carry weight. And if someone wanted David bound to Celeste forever, what better tether than matching ink? A mark etched into his skin, impossible to erase, no matter how loudly he insists on his innocence. The timing is too precise. The photos. The whispers. The way the narrative unfolded like a perfectly written script. Too neat to be chance. And in a world where perception becomes reality, David's guilt was sealed the moment the headlines hit. But what if the real guilt doesn't belong to David at all? What if it lies with the people who made sure those headlines were written in the first place?
It's very clear we're going to get to the bottom of this sooner than later. Like they are closing in, and it is heartbreaking to see these images of Celeste now, knowing how she came to her end, but to see her at a very young age in this sort of Hollywood circle, you just wonder how it got to that point for her, and you hope the police can.
The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. This was never just about David. It was about power, about control, about sending a message to anyone who dares to rise too fast, too bright, too unapologetically. And if that's true, then Celeste's tragic end wasn't only a crime, it was a warning. A reminder that in the shadows of fame, there are forces willing to destroy lives to keep the game rigged in their favor. Oh, the question isn't just who framed David. The question is, who's next? Because if they could do this to him, a man with millions of fans, a record deal, and the world at his feet, then no one is untouchable. That's what makes this story so terrifying. It isn't just about one singer, one manager, or one young life stolen too soon. It's about a system that feeds on destruction, where careers are built on ashes and legends are buried beneath scandal. David may be the face of this nightmare, but he isn't the only victim. Celeste was caught in the crossfire. And unless we demand answers, the real monsters walk free. Oh, here's where we leave you tonight, with a question that's haunted this story from the very beginning. If David was set up, who's still out there? And what else are they capable of? Because one thing is certain, this story is far from over. The players are still moving. The stakes are higher than ever. And the next chapter, it could be darker than anything we've seen yet. Stay sharp. Stay curious. And remember, in Hollywood, the scariest stories aren't the ones they tell you. They're the ones they don't.